5 phrases to avoid when she's angry plus the one that works. Have you ever found yourself trying to soothe an upset female partner? If so, you've likely discovered that certain expressions can make matters significantly worse. You might say something with the best intentions, hoping to diffuse the tension, only to watch her anger intensify or, perhaps more distressingly, see her dissolve into tears. This situation often creates a walking on eggshells feeling where you become hesitant to speak at all, fearing your words might backfire. The fundamental challenge here stems from how differently men and women process emotions. The very phrases that might help a male friend regain perspective and logical thinking can actually produce the opposite effect when directed at a woman. In this discussion, I'll identify the expressions you should absolutely avoid when a woman is upset, and I'll share one particularly effective phrase that can not only prevent negative reactions, like shouting, crying, or emotional outbursts, but actually help her regain emotional balance. Be sure to watch until the conclusion for this valuable insight, plus an additional helpful strategy. For those new to my content, I'm Anna Jorgensen, and welcome to my weekly segment, Just the Tip Tuesday. I'm confident many of you have innocently used phrases that inadvertently intensified a woman's emotional response. While women's emotional complexity might seem puzzling, much of it has biological foundations. This isn't meant as an excuse. I'm simply providing intelligence to help navigate these situations more effectively. Regular viewers of my content may already know that the emotional processing center in a woman's brain is approximately 8 times more sensitive than a man's and connects directly to our long-term memory systems. Yes, we do remember everything, and these memories often carry greater emotional significance for us. What might surprise you is that we're just as frustrated by our seemingly illogical emotional responses as you are. We simply don't want to admit this vulnerability, because some reactions feel beyond our conscious control. As neurobiologist Andrew Huberman from Stanford aptly puts it, I wasn't consulted during the design phase of human biology. Let's examine these problematic phrases and understand why they are so triggering. I'll present them in ascending order, starting with the least provocative, and building to the absolute worst thing you could say to an angry woman. I guarantee most of you have used this most inflammatory phrase at some point, despite its counterproductive effects. Of course, if you're deliberately trying to test a woman's emotional limits, feel free to use these expressions. They'll certainly reveal the full range of her emotional responses. So what are these phrases? Let's begin with number 5, calm down, or chill out. These might seem harmless, but I know many of you have used them and witnessed the negative reaction they provoke, even when a woman is only mildly upset. Here's the scientific explanation. When a woman becomes angry, her prefrontal cortex, the brain's logical processing center, essentially deactivates, making rational information nearly impossible to process. While men experience this too, it typically requires much more intense, or different types of stimuli to trigger comparable anger responses. When someone tells you to calm down, while you're genuinely upset, if someone is deeply angry, truly caught up in that intense emotional state, most attempts at rational conversation are likely to fail. This is especially true for women, since research indicates that the emotional processing centers in a woman's brain are up to 8 times more sensitive compared to men. As a result, emotional triggers can escalate more quickly for women. If you tell a woman to relax or calm down during such a moment, it doesn't help. In fact, it can make matters worse. She may feel as if you're dismissing or minimizing her feelings, which can be incredibly hurtful. No one likes having their emotions invalidated, but it's important to know that women and men often experience that sense of dismissal in different ways. Consider, for example, the phrase "don't cry." When a woman reaches the point of tears, it's usually not a deliberate act or a manipulative tactic, unless she falls into the very rare categories of extreme narcissism or intentional emotional manipulation. More commonly, tears are a sign that her feelings, whether sadness, frustration, anger, confusion, or even compassion, have overwhelmed her capacity for self-control. Once the tears start, she can't simply will them away, even if she'd like to. This is just how emotional release works for many women. It's not about trying to control or manipulate someone, it's about needing to let out a surge of intense feeling. If you see genuine sobbing, think tears rolling down her face, maybe even with snot bubbles, that's about as far from fake as it gets. The reasons for tears can vary widely, including sadness, feeling overwhelmed by circumstances, pent-up frustration, or even a powerful sense of empathy. If you respond to a crying woman by telling her to stop, she may only become more upset, as her emotions are already beyond what she can consciously manage. Crying is a natural and healthy emotional release for everyone, but women may experience and express this less controllably, and social norms often make it more acceptable for them to do so. This tendency can be heightened if she's tired, hungry, stressed, or dealing with several issues at once. Now, let's talk about another common mistake, using phrases like, "Why are you so cranky?" or "Why are you so upset?" On the surface, these questions might sound like genuine attempts to understand and support her. You may feel that if you know what's wrong, you can help, or if you point out what you think is an overreaction, it might encourage her to see things more rationally. However, this usually backfires because, at the height of anger, a woman is not engaging from a place of logic and reason, she's operating from a more primal, emotional mindset. From her perspective, she believes she has clearly communicated why she's upset and expects you to understand. If you don't, she can feel disconnected, misunderstood, and again, invalidated. Similarly, telling her, "It's not that big a deal," is a classic way to minimize her experience. Even if the situation seems trivial to you, to her it's a significant emotional event. When her feelings are brushed aside, she doesn't feel heard or respected, which only exacerbates her distress. Understanding these dynamics can help create stronger, more empathetic communication during emotionally charged moments, fostering closer connections rather than driving wedges between you. Let's break this down. If a woman is upset with you, she might feel dismissed. If she's angry at someone else, she could feel betrayed. Picture this scenario. You get fired for something you know you did wrong, and you vent to your partner about what a jerk your boss is. But instead of supporting you, she sides with your boss. Logically, you made a mistake, but does it feel good for her to agree with your boss? Of course not. You don't want to feel like your feelings are being invalidated, especially when you're taking responsibility for your actions. In the heat of the moment, you need someone on your side, not pointing out your faults. I have a personal story that illustrates this point perfectly. It involves an ex-boyfriend, and I think it will help clarify things. The bottom line is, you want your partner to lift you up, not tear you down. She wants the same thing from you. Now, let's talk about a phrase you should never say to an angry woman: "Are you on your period?" or any variation of that. Yes, hormones play a role in mood swings, but bringing it up is like pouring salt on a wound. It's not only insensitive, but also dismissive of her feelings. Women are aware of their hormonal changes, and they don't need a reminder, especially when they're already emotional. So, what's the one phrase that works almost every time when dealing with an angry woman? Tell me more. I'm listening. It's simple, but effective, as long as you deliver it sincerely. The key is to show genuine interest in understanding her perspective. Additionally, there's a nonverbal strategy that can help about 95% of the time, whether she's angry at you or someone else. Maintain open, non-threatening body language. This means avoiding crossed arms or defensive postures, and instead leaning in slightly to show you're engaged and willing to listen. Remember, women want to feel heard and understood, just like anyone else. By using the right words and body language, you can help de-escalate the situation, and show her that you care about her feelings. When someone is upset, whether it's directed at you or another person, you may need to adjust your approach slightly, especially if you're the target of their frustration. If they are angry with you, there's a good chance you already have some insight into the reason behind it. They might have openly shared their feelings, or at least hinted at what they believe is the root of their irritation. However, the core principle remains the same. Your goal is to show them that you're truly paying attention. You want to encourage them to express themselves fully, which can help them move toward a more positive emotional state. For example, imagine a friend who's upset because of a misunderstanding at work. By listening attentively, you create a space where they feel safe to share more details, which can lead to emotional relief. Here's an interesting fact to consider. Research suggests that women tend to use around 20,000 words per day, while men typically use about 7,000. This difference highlights how women often process challenges by talking them out, whether the issue involves you or an external situation. Verbal expression, sometimes even venting, is a key way many women work through their emotions. In contrast, men might prefer to retreat into their own space, often referred to as a man cave, to quietly reflect on their problems. Men might mentally sort through their issues, set them aside, and later return to them in search of a solution. Women, on the other hand, frequently find that simply discussing their concerns helps them uncover their own answers, while also releasing pent-up stress or frustration. So, when you listen, really listen, without jumping into offer fixes, you're actually providing the support they need most in that moment. It's important to understand that women, much like men, want to feel heard, supported, and validated. While men might seek validation through actions or achievements, women often find it through being listened to. This doesn't mean ignoring situations where someone might be in the wrong. Those issues still need to be addressed. However, if you try to tackle the problem in a way that skips over listening, your efforts are likely to fall flat. Listening is the essential first step toward any meaningful resolution. Now, I know this can be challenging, especially for men, because many of you are natural problem solvers. Whether the issue is about you or someone else, your instinct might be to step in and fix things right away. Ladies, if you're reading this, keep in mind that this problem-solving mindset comes from a place of care. Men often want to help by offering solutions. If your partner or friend isn't aware of this dynamic, you can gently guide them by saying, "Right now, the best way you can help me is by listening." This simple statement can make a big difference. For the guys, here's a practical tip. If you're unsure of what's expected, just ask. When someone is sharing their frustrations, your brain might start racing with ideas like, "Oh, they could try this," or "Here's an easy fix." But offering solutions too soon isn't always the right move. Instead, try asking, "Would you like me to just listen? Or are you looking for help in solving this?" In most cases, you'll hear, "I just need you to listen." This small question shows respect for their needs and helps you respond in the most helpful way. Now, let's talk about a non-verbal approach that can be incredibly effective, about 95% of the time, depending on the situation and your relationship with the person. If someone is upset, whether with you or someone else, a powerful way to help them calm down is through physical comfort, like a warm hug or a gentle touch. Think of it as enveloping them in a sense of safety and care. Of course, this strategy depends on the context and how well you know the person. Always be mindful of their comfort level. You might be thinking, "I've tried that before, and it didn't work." If that's the case, it could be a matter of timing or the specific dynamics at play, but don't dismiss this approach entirely. It can often be a game changer when done with genuine care. When she becomes upset, her anger can escalate, and she may push you away. This is a common scenario, and it often highlights why certain approaches may not be effective. In fact, about 95% of the time, the outcome hinges on the specific circumstances. Deep down, she genuinely desires comfort, but if she is in a heightened emotional state, especially if she is angry with you, things can become quite delicate. If her anger hasn't reached a boiling point and she hasn't started crying yet, she might actually be open to a hug, as it could help her unwind. However, be ready for the possibility that once you embrace her, the tears may begin to flow. This is often because she feels secure enough to let her emotions out in that moment. If her distress is related to you, a hug could either be a helpful gesture or a misstep. Here's a helpful guideline. If she is upset with you for what she perceives as a valid reason, then offering a hug might come across as manipulative. It could seem like you are trying to sidestep the issue, or evade the responsibility that she feels you should take. On the other hand, if her frustration stems from being tired, hungry, or overwhelmed, and the issue at hand is relatively minor, whether it involves you or someone else, a hug might be just what she needs. I wish I could provide you with a definitive answer for every situation, but you can always ask her directly, "Can I give you a hug? Or would you like me to hold you?" Her response will guide you. As an additional strategy, consider how to support her when she is upset about someone else, or a different situation. Let me share a personal experience to illustrate this. When I was dating a guy in Los Angeles, he was going through a particularly tough time in his life. He had a landlady who he clashed with, and while she wasn't perfect, much of the tension stemmed from his own attitude. I thought I was being helpful by pointing out his behavior, but I quickly learned that this was not what he needed. In that moment, he didn't want logic, he wanted a partner who would stand by him. He expressed this clearly, saying, "I don't care if you're right. I just want you to be on my side." This realization has stayed with me ever since. The next time he was frustrated with his landlady, I lightened the mood by jokingly saying, "You get the shovel, and I'll get the lime," which made him laugh. Of course, we weren't actually planning anything sinister. The key was that I made him feel like I was on his team. In the same way, you want to be on her team, just as you hope she will be on yours. If she is upset about someone else, or a different issue, you can either playfully exaggerate the situation, to bring some humor into it, or simply affirm her feelings by saying something like, "You didn't deserve to be treated that way," or "You deserve better, babe." By showing her that you are on her side, you will likely earn her appreciation. If she happens to be in the wrong, you can address that issue later. To summarize, your approach should involve listening without trying to fix the situation, offering a hug only if she consents, and positioning yourself as her ally. Now that you are aware of the phrases that tend to backfire when dealing with an upset woman, you might be curious about the expressions that can actually ignite her interest. I'm referring to specific words that trigger powerful responses in her subconscious, which can significantly enhance her arousal. These carefully chosen words and phrases resonate deeply with her emotions, making her yearn for your attention and physical closeness. When you use them, she will likely feel a wave of warmth and desire, wanting to connect with you both emotionally and physically. The wonderful aspect of these phrases is that they are concise, sweet, and straightforward, making them easy to recall. However, timing is crucial. Using them at the right moment can lead to an intense and passionate atmosphere, while saying them at an inappropriate time might require you to revisit this topic later. In the next video, I will share these effective phrases with you, so be sure to watch it.